Alright, picture this. Imagine the world's two biggest economies, America and China, locked in a high-stakes fight over trade, money, and global power. It's not just about numbers on a spreadsheet, it's about who gets to call the shots in the 21st century. This isn't some distant, abstract battle. It's a clash that affects everything from the price of your phone to the job market in your hometown. But why did the US, under President Trump, decide to launch a trade war in the first place? Let's break it down and get to the heart of what really set this off. First, it was all about leverage. The US wanted to put pressure on China to force them to the negotiating table and get a better deal for American workers and companies. Trump slapped massive tariffs, some as high as 145%, on Chinese imports, hoping to force China to the negotiating table and fix what he saw as an unfair trade deal. These tariffs were meant to send a message: play by our rules or pay the price. The aim? Bring jobs back to America and shrink the US trade deficit. For decades, factories had been closing, and many Americans felt left behind as jobs moved overseas. The logic was simple: make imported goods more expensive, and suddenly, US factories looked pretty attractive again. The hope was that companies would start making more things at home, boosting local economies and creating new opportunities for American workers. But there's more to it. This was also about global power. The US wasn't just worried about jobs, it was worried about losing its spot as the world's top dog. The US wanted to slow China down, especially as China's influence kept growing across the world. China was investing in massive infrastructure projects, building relationships with countries everywhere, and challenging America's leadership on the global stage. And honestly, there was a bit of a misunderstanding at play here. Trump saw trade deficits as America losing, when in reality, trade is a lot more complicated than just tallying up who sells more. Economists argue that deficits aren't always bad. They can mean consumers have more choices and businesses can get cheaper supplies. So how did China respond? Well, they didn't fold. Instead of backing down, China doubled down on its own economic plans and refused to be bullied. In fact, China's economy kept growing over 5% this year, while the U.S. actually shrank a little. China's leaders made it clear they weren't going to let tariffs derail their ambitions. China started trading more with Europe and Southeast Asia, making sure they weren't cornered by US tariffs. They built new trade routes and found new partners, showing just how quickly the global economy can shift. And instead of rushing to the negotiating table, China decided to wait Trump out, betting he'd get desperate for a deal as the pain hit home. They played the long game, confident that time was on their side. Here's the kicker: the US might actually need China more than the other way around. The American economy is deeply tied to Chinese manufacturing, and breaking those ties isn't easy. Think about it. So many things Americans use every day, from smartphones to electric cars, depend on rare earth minerals that mostly come from China. Without those materials, entire industries could grind to a halt. Building new supply chains, that could take a decade or more. It's not just about finding new suppliers, it's about building trust, infrastructure, and reliable networks from scratch. And with America's allies staying on the sidelines, the US has been left pretty isolated in this fight. Other countries are watching closely, but few are eager to pick sides in a battle between two giants. Meanwhile, regular Americans have started to feel the heat. Prices are creeping up. Some goods are harder to find. Everyday life is getting more expensive, and people are starting to notice. And while the full impact hasn't hit yet, experts say by mid-2025, it'll be impossible to ignore. The ripple effects of this trade war could last for years, shaping the economy and politics for a generation. So, what's next? Trump's already hinting at dialing back tariffs, signaling a possible change in strategy. But the uncertainty is far from over, and both sides are still playing hardball. But with the next election always around the corner, trade wars aren't going away anytime soon. Politicians know that trade is a hot-button issue, and it's likely